Wife doesn't contribute anymore. My wife doesn't contribute to anything anymore. I have been with my wife for 8 years, 5 years married. Over the last 2 years she has become a different person, and it's a bit like having a child. She doesn't work, isn't in school currently, and we don't have kids. What she does do all day and night is play video games on her computer and watch streamers. Specifically, if you don't know what this is, think Sims but set in the world of Grand Theft Auto 5 where you role-play your own character. Once the pandemic started in 2020 she was forced to be inside all the time practically. She has a lung disease called LAM, lymphangioliomyomatosis, which is a disease for which there is no cure. It causes breathing issues and she's had several lung collapses over the years, so getting COVID could be a death sentence. This forced her to lock herself inside, which no physical contact except for me. She was in school but that moved to remote learning. She eventually fell into depression and eventually failed some classes and has now taken 2021 off with the intent of going back spring 2022. She was on Dean's list before the pandemic when she was going to class in person, but being home all the time changed that. Later on in 2020 I tried to get her into Animal Crossing so she could keep herself busy. She doesn't really have hobbies and I knew this was something she'd enjoy, especially since she could play with one of her best friends. It worked and she really enjoyed herself. This led to her watching people stream Animal Crossing and other games, which made her want to get a PC so she could play more games. Then she eventually came across GTA RP and everything went downhill after that emo. She started pulling constant all-nighters, or staying up 36 hours then sleeping/staying in bed for 16 hours. She threw herself into this game because it allows her to role-play and become this character she made up. I guess the rules of the game are you have to stay in character and it's practically a job. There are even jobs you do in the game like real life, but again, it's only a video game. She stopped having dinner with me. We're pretty independent people who like our me time, but we would also sit together for dinner, watch TV and talk, stopped taking care of her cats, and stopped doing any chores to help around the house. Now don't get me wrong, I play games too, but within reason. I make sure work and things around the house come first before I sit down and play for a few hours. I am now the only one who cooks, does the dishes, laundry, cleans the house and works full-time. We have also been renovating our house, which I'm doing by myself, plus I have my hobbies. My wife just stays in her room all day and night playing this game and nothing else. If I ask to help out with anything she snaps at me like a teenage girl, then later on apologizes but then does it again the next day. She has 3 cats. I'm not a cat person but I'm fine with her having them, and I've now had to start feeding them or filling their water bowl because she won't do it. One of the cats is elderly with digestive issues who throws up and poops outside the litter boxes. There is a mud room dedicated to the litter boxes but it'll go weeks before she takes care of it. You literally have to tiptoe through the room because of the mess. I've even had to take the elderly to the vet to make sure he's okay and what to do for him. Vet said he's fine and recommended a certain food for him, but my wife won't order it, lazy. I've even had to resort to turning off the internet to her computer to get her up and do something. Boy, was that a mistake, because she gave me the silent treatment, eventually sending me a text, "You're acting like my dad and I hate my dad." I also recently fractured my collarbone and hip in a bicycle accident. I thought maybe this would be the time she would step up and break this habit, but no, here I am limping around one-armed doing everything still. I get that depression can really be crippling, but our insurance covers sessions with a professional, but I can't get her to go. It just seems like all she cares about is that game and nothing else matters. Her family, friends, cats and myself all take a back seat to that game. I even took her away over Labor Day weekend to Tennessee, where we stayed in a cabin with no contact with people. She spent the entire weekend messaging her gaming friends on Discord and wouldn't spend time with me at the cabin. And when we were driving she only talked about the game and those friends. Sure enough, once we got home she got right back on the game within an hour. I've mentioned multiple times I want her to contribute and be a part of our team, but nothing ever changes. I'm lost on what to do, but she's no longer the woman I married. She has become her ex-husband, who she divorced because he didn't work, go to school, help around the house, and only played video games. We are both fully vaccinated, so is my immediate family and our circle of friends, but she won't doing anything with us. I also work from home and can hear her laughing and having a good time with these gaming friends, but it just hurts that I can't get that from her. Any advice? TLDR, my wife has become addicted to an online video game, playing all day/night while doing nothing else. We have no kids, but chores, responsibilities, working to pay bills, everything falls on me. She won't stop and contribute. I've had enough. Now for the top comments. Whilst I have sympathy for anyone with debilitating health issues, they are not the only person who faces it. You've been a supporter and carer throughout, but have not had someone supporting or caring for you. The result is you have to support and care for yourself now. It's not sustainable for you to continue lighting yourself on fire to keep her warm. Personally, I'd do as other posters have mentioned, an ultimatum with one of two outcomes. She either steps up and becomes a contributing, active partner, or she's no longer a partner and has to fend for herself. What I'd also advise you is to do some reflection on what you'd suggest to a close friend suffering from the same situation. It's harder to take advice than give it, but what would your advice be? Never thought of it this way. Thank you, I will reflect on that. Next comment. Are the cats taken care of for those few days? If so, maybe it's time for you to move out until her behavior changes. Start with a discussion of therapy and her making small but meaningful changes on a weekly to monthly basis. If those things don't happen, let her know you'll be consulting a divorce attorney and will not be returning home. If you're home all the time, she has nothing to worry about, like cat care, laundry, cleaning, and meals. When you're gone, she'll have to face reality a bit. Either way, you'll get an answer on how you'll move on, with or without her. Next comment. Honestly, it might be time for you to hand her 2 business cards, one for a counselor, preferably an addiction one, and one for a divorce lawyer. Then it's up to her which one she chooses. It sounds like you've been really patient and understanding. Staying up 24 to 36 hours to play is extreme behavior even from a teenager, much less a grown adult. It's no wonder your relationship is suffering because of this. Unfortunately, she needs to be the one to want help, and it may take a big "this is how your behavior is impacting me" gesture like the 2 cards approach for her to take stock of her life. Next comment. A few years ago I crashed really hard with depression that morphed to bipolar, that morphed to schizophrenia, that morphed to who knows what. My husband carried the weight for a while, but ultimately said, either you get help or I'm taking our son and going. That's when I finally got help. All I did was lay in bed and sleep. I cried over the simplest thing going wrong, but I had to make the choice to get help. I didn't realize how deeply I'd sunk until I felt better. While that may be her case, she needs a very serious kick in the butt. My husband gave me a month to get in with my PCP and at least start getting help, whether it was medicine or referrals for psychiatrists. Something needed to happen. I made it freaking happen. I also went to the doctor every 3 days for check-ins and medicine changes for months because he and our son were most important to me. Next comment. She's not playing video games, she's escaping real life. Her gaming friends are just an extension of that. By interacting with them, she can avoid real-life responsibilities like work, household chores, and her relationship. The tough love is that you're completely enabling this lifestyle. She's 35 years old. There's only so much time for her to get her career and life on track. If you divorced her tomorrow and stopped financially supporting her, where would she turn? What would she consider doing to support herself? These are the questions you have to ask her and move her towards a self-sufficient future. Your relationship is going to take a backseat either way, while she works on herself. I agree she needs therapy, But that's not the only thing she needs. She needs purpose. She needs to see a future that excites her. Otherwise, she will just keep treading water on your dime until someone forces her to change. Next comment. I know this response is a total cliché, but this is way above Reddit's pay grade. This is so hard for both of you. Therapy, definitely. If she refuses to go, I would see if she would agree to couples therapy, especially if you can communicate to her how unhappy you are in a relationship. There's a good chance that she is refusing therapy because when someone is suffering from depression and doesn't see a way out, it feels like therapy is just a punishment session that will make them feel worse about themselves. Next comment. Go to couples counseling to address her behavior. You need to encourage her to seek one-on-one therapy to address her depression as well because she doesn't sound well. Is she open to work from home/virtual jobs? And honestly, I feel sorry for your cat. Depression is no excuse to neglect/abuse an animal. Rehome the animal if you can't clean up after it. It's no wonder the poor thing goes outside the litter box. How can both of you two go weeks without cleaning up after it? Next comment. I have struggled with depression and chronic health issues, and my dog has been what's helped get me through a deep depression after a parent passed away this year. At no point in any of that did I stop taking care of her or neglect the basics of life. If I had someone there for me, I would have been endlessly grateful. I think I wonder why she feels the need to escape. But again, not something I can figure out, but definitely something she needs therapy for. Maybe she feels like with her health issues, re-entry into the real world won't really be possible, so she's making the best of it with this fantasy world. Next comment. It's clear that many comments are coming from people who've never experienced clinical depression, as I have, and as your wife is currently experiencing. Escapism is a common coping mechanism. You can contact your employer-provided counseling services for yourself and request advice on how to proceed if your spouse won't agree to seek help. There may be in-home mental health services available to you. YP orgs will have that info and be able to refer you locally. Ultimatums never work, regardless of intent. If you'd rather leave than get her some help, that's on you. If you want to help the woman you married, who is presently incapable of doing so herself, then get her to someone who can help. Either way, good luck to you both, as it's a disease that impacts you both whether you stay or go. Next comment. Feel like I'm about to hate what I have to say. This is a side of a similar story. My ex, together 7 years, cohabiting 5, left me about 6 months ago. Toward his end he had complaints about me that could match up with some of these. I dug my heels in and felt that we were getting through times. After he left, I immediately made changes in myself and my life. I asked him to talk to me and see if we could reconcile or else part as friends, but he never talked to me again. Long before then I felt at an impasse with him. It felt like he had a list of what I was doing wrong. If he was angry towards me or anyone else, or if I had an issue with him, that list came out or he shut himself away. I really wanted couples therapy, and that is very different than individual therapy, which I am in. During lockdown there were always lines I crossed for him. How dare I go into work? How dare I never leave the house? Everything was damned if I do or don't, and he didn't see it. He started helping me with my our 20-year-old cat, as a sign of his love, which meant I didn't need to hear I love you, and I was wary to never cross his line of correcting the things he chipped in, the way his condemned ex did every time he did a chore. So he filled the water and I occasionally cleaned and refilled it behind his back. Eventually he started saying, "You've got to remember to give the cat water for Christ's sake." Though I was totally on top of it. Proposing a date, while there were still mandates to stay home, became wrapped in "who is lazy, it me." BTW, I know 2 fully vaccinated people without health issues that died from, 160 plus, 1 mid-30s. I absolutely fell into a shitty version of myself and it was not his fault. He was a different shitty version of himself and it was not my fault. Though I don't think he faced that. I am still facing me and probably could have been harsher on myself here. It is probably for the best that we broke up, just us, not you guys. We were bringing out the worst in each other, and like I said, the second he was gone I snapped into the reality that I didn't like who I was and made changes. You sound like you are putting up with beyond what either of us did, that you are open to solutions or considerations, and I don't mean to say it's the same at all. During COVID I have seen a lot of women become a little too comfortable being home all the time and men who are sick of everyone being cooped up. I am unmarried, but I can't help but think of how much this has tested traditional vows of sickness and health, better or worse. I don't really have a recommendation. Couples therapy would be it if I did. An ultimatum, with some kind of enforced break, might work. I am sorry for what you are going through. I hope it gets better. Next comment. So your wife, who has a life-endangering illness during a global pandemic no one is taking seriously, was forced to give up her entire life, and thus failed one of her major accomplishments, is not addicted to a game where the entire premise is you can just walk around and live normally? What? Seems pretty clear to me you have all the pieces. These last couple years have sucked, but for chronically ill people even more. Can I ask, did you go out and see people during the last 2 years? Do you still go out and do things like shopping? Sounds like she doesn't. The pandemic is majorly terrifying, for good reason. I know I was a little traumatized last year, and that's just from living with someone with high risk, not being that person. Your wife is going through an impossible situation right now. You two going on a small vacation seems sweet, but I wouldn't be surprised if she was terrified to be there anyways. Plus, after having to isolate for so long, you get comfortable in a small space and the world seems even more scary. And it is. She was in real danger for a really long time. She still is. It's true she needs counseling, but you can try to support her by understanding her depression and fear and seclusion are real. It's hard to strike a balance. And by all means, if you can't handle it, don't feel like you need to stay. But you can try understanding her first. Next comment. You have been enabling her behavior for over a year now. You have taught her that she can literally get away with using you like a maid and provider. Don't do it anymore. Sit down with her and tell her that she has 2 options and must choose one: A. Divorce, or B. Therapy. Be prepared to follow through though, regardless of what she chooses. If she chooses therapy, give her a firm deadline. A week would be fair, within which to find a therapist and schedule an appointment. Be firm with her that she needs to put in the effort. Let her know that if she misses appointments or stops therapy, then you will be forced to divorce her. During the same conversation, ask her how she would survive if she didn't have you. She has essentially given you no option but to support her entirely, without even an ounce of effort on her part. You need to tell her that you are done being her maid and provider, and that she needs to look for a job. Tell her that it's completely disrespectful of her to expect you to cook her meals for her only for her to eat alone or ignore you. In the meantime, stop everything you are doing for her. Take care of yourself. Do what you need to do and want to do, for yourself. Stop doing her laundry. Stop cleaning up after her. Stop cooking her meals. She will eventually realize that she needs to grow the hell up. Next comment. My husband became addicted to the GTA. He literally would never leave his PC. Whilst he was on it I was invisible. He literally had a job in the game and he had to do job interviews and everything. The game goes way too far when it comes to, it literally takes over your life. When my husband played that, it was a constant battle. If I asked him to do something it would be I've got to fill in this arrest form. He was a cop in the game. Or I'm busy on a case. The game became his life. He only got away from it because I got pregnant and being constantly ignored made me an emotional wreck at the time. So he stopped playing it. Get her off that game before it destroys her life. I play video games, but that game is not a game, it's another life.